June 23, 1941. West of Smolensk, along a dirt road choked with dust and exhaust. The sun is barely above the tree line when Lieutenant Hans Keller, 7th Panzer Division, leans out of his Panzer III's open hatch. The smell of hot oil and scorched grass hangs in the air. Engines idle. Tracks clatter. Somewhere ahead, artillery thumps like a distant door being slammed again and again. Keller has reason to feel confident. Everyone here does. For 3 days now, Operation Barbarossa has unfolded exactly as planned. Soviet border units shattered. Roads clogged with prisoners. Burned-out trucks abandoned in ditches. The Red Army, German officers tell one another, is fighting yesterday's war. Badly trained crews, thin armor, brittle doctrine. France took 6 weeks. Russia, they say, will take less. Inside Keller's turret, the radio crackles. Advance cautiously. Recon reports Soviet armor ahead. Armor is nothing new. Since dawn, Keller's platoon has destroyed half a dozen Soviet tanks, light BTs, and T-20 their thin armor punched through cleanly by 50mm shells. One caught fire so fast its crew never climbed out. Keller taps the steel rim of his hatch with a gloved hand. "Same junk as before," he mutters. "They never learn." Ahead, the road dips into a shallow clearing bordered by birch trees. Smoke drifts low across the grass. A burned Soviet gun lies twisted near a crater. Everything looks familiar, almost comfortable. Then the ground begins to shake. At first, Keller thinks it's artillery. But the vibration is different, rhythmic, heavy. Not explosions. Engines. Out of the smoke, a shape emerges. It is larger than the BTs, lower, broader. Its turret is squat, its hull sharply angled, like a wedge cutting forward through the haze. Mud cakes its sides. Its tracks churn slowly but relentlessly, as if the terrain itself is giving way beneath it. Keller frowns. That's not in the recognition manual. The Soviet tank rolls fully into view, green paint dulled by dust, red star barely visible beneath grime. Its gun swings toward Keller's position. "Target front," Keller shouts. "Fire!" The Panzer III lurches as the 50mm cannon barks. The shell slams into the Soviet tank's frontal armor and ricochets. A bright spark flashes. The round screens away into the trees. Inside Keller's turret, there is a second of stunned silence. "Again!" he yells. Another shell. Another hit. Another bounce. The Soviet tank does not stop. Its engine roars deeper, louder. It turns slightly, presenting its angled hull, not perpendicular, but sloped, deflecting impact. The design is alien to German eyes trained on flat plates and vertical armor. The Soviet gun fires. The round tears through the Panzer III's frontal plate with a sound like metal ripping apart. Keller is thrown backward as fragments explode inside the turret. Smoke floods the compartment. Someone screams. Outside, another German tank is hit, then another. One burns instantly, hatches jammed. Another throws its track and slews sideways, helpless. German gunners keep firing. Shell after shell clangs uselessly off the Soviet armor. You can almost hear the disbelief spreading across the clearing, moving from tank to tank. "What is that thing? Our shells aren't penetrating. Fall back, fall back." But the Soviet tank does not rush forward recklessly. It advances with grim deliberation, firing methodically, crushing a gun position beneath its tracks as if it were made of wood. This is not the Red Army Keller was told to expect. By noon, the engagement is over. Several German tanks are destroyed. The Soviet machines, there are more than one now, withdraw into the trees, damaged but alive. Their crews vanish with them. Keller survives, pulled bleeding from the wreck of his Panzer. As medics bandage his arm, he watches smoke curl from blackened hulks along the road. The confidence of the morning is gone, replaced by something colder. That evening, captured Soviet equipment is examined under guard. German engineers run their hands along the tank's hull, measuring angles, tapping armor with knuckles. One of them laughs, a short, uneasy sound. "Crude workmanship," he says. "Poor optics. Bad welds." But no one laughs with him, because they have already done the math. The armor is thick, but more importantly sloped. A design that multiplies effective thickness without adding weight. The wide tracks spread the tank's mass, allowing it to cross mud that bogs down German vehicles. Its diesel engine is less prone to fire. Its gun is powerful enough to kill anything Germany currently fields. This tank was not built for parades. It was built for annihilation. Messages race back to headquarters that night. Reports from multiple Panzer divisions describe the same impossible phenomenon. German shells bouncing off Soviet tanks at combat range. In Berlin, staff officers frown over typed dispatches. In factories, engineers will soon be ordered to stay late, very late. Because somewhere east of Smolensk, the war has changed shape. And Germany's engineers, who once laughed at Soviet design, have just met a machine that renders their confidence obsolete. June 25, 1941. Army Group Center Headquarters, east of Minsk. The room smells of cigarette smoke, damp maps, and exhaustion. General Oberst-Heinz Guderian, architect of Germany's armored doctrine, stands hunched over a wooden table littered with reconnaissance photos and field reports. His fingers drum impatiently against the edge. He has read the same sentence 3 times now. Direct hits at ranges under 500 meters failed to penetrate frontal armor. Guderian looks up slowly. "Again," he says. "Tell me again." The divisional intelligence officer swallows. "Multiple encounters, Herr General. Near Smolensk, Orsha, Roslevel. Same result. The new Soviet tank, designation unknown, appears immune to our standard anti-tank guns from the front." Guderian removes his glasses and pinches the bridge of his nose. This is not possible. German armor doctrine is built on speed, coordination, and decisive firepower. The Panzer III and IV were never meant to duel invulnerable enemies head-on, because such enemies were not supposed to exist. Yet the reports keep coming. Panzer crews describing shells glancing off like stones on water. Anti-tank guns crushed under steel tracks. Soviet tanks advancing through mud where German vehicles stalled helplessly. One unit reports firing every round they had, point blank, before being overrun. "These men are not cowards," Guderian says quietly. "They are veterans of Poland and France." He straightens. "I want one of these tanks. Intact." Within days, German recovery units manage the impossible. Near the Dnieper River, a damaged Soviet tank is found abandoned, engine seized, crew gone. Under armed guard, it is hauled westward, then eventually shipped to Germany. When it arrives at the Kummersdorf proving ground, engineers gather like surgeons around a patient they do not yet understand. The tank is finally identified. T-34. It does not look impressive at first glance. The welds are rough. The interior cramped. The optics inferior to German standards. One engineer scoffs openly. "Primitive," he mutters. "This is not German craftsmanship." Then they begin measuring. Armor thickness, substantial, but not revolutionary. What matters is the angle. Every major surface is sloped, forcing shells to strike obliquely, increasing effective protection while reducing weight. Tracks, wide, aggressive, built for mud and snow, conditions German planners dismissed as seasonal inconveniences. Engine, diesel. Less volatile than gasoline. Harder to ignite. Gun, a 76.2 mm cannon capable of killing any German tank currently in service. One engineer finally says what everyone is thinking. If we had faced this in France, the outcome might have been different. Field tests began immediately. German 50 mm and even short-barreled 75 mm guns are fired at the captured T-34. The results are undeniable. At typical combat ranges, frontal penetration is unreliable at best. The laughter is gone now. In July, Guderian himself inspects the tank. He runs his hand along the sloped hull and shakes his head. "The Russians," he says, "have built the future." Back at the front, Panzer crews are learning the same lesson the hard way. Near Yelnya, a German anti-tank battery opens fire on advancing Soviet armor. The T-34s do not stop. They drive straight through the barrage, return fire, and obliterate the gun line in minutes. Survivors later describe the tanks as ghosts, impervious, unstoppable. German doctrine adapts on the fly. Orders go out: avoid frontal engagements. Target tracks. Aim for the sides. Call artillery. Use 88 mm anti-aircraft guns, never intended for tank combat, as emergency tank killers. The 88s work. When they hit, even the T-34 dies violently. But they are few, heavy, and difficult to deploy. You cannot base an entire war on improvisation. By August, the problem has reached the highest levels of the Reich. Meetings are held behind closed doors. Engineers from Daimler-Benz and MAN present hurried proposals. New tanks. Thicker armor. Longer guns. Sloped hulls. Concepts borrowed, reluctantly but undeniably, from the enemy. One senior designer says it aloud, voice tight. "We are copying the Russians." The decision is made. Germany will build a new medium tank, faster than the Panzer IV, better armored, with a gun capable of killing the T-34 at range. It will be rushed, tested under pressure, refined even as it enters combat. Its name will be Panther. But design takes time. Production takes longer. And time is something Germany is already running out of. As autumn approaches, the roads turn to mud. The Rasputitsa swallows trucks and half-tracks whole. German supply lines stretch thinner every day. Meanwhile, Soviet factories, many evacuated beyond the Urals, are producing T-34s in staggering numbers. Roughly built, yes. But fast. Relentless. Replaceable. At the front, Panzer crews feel the balance shifting beneath them. They still win battles. They still advance. But now, every engagement carries a question that did not exist in June. What if they bring the new tanks? Hans Keller, back with a replacement unit after recovering from his wounds, watches a column of Soviet armor crest a distant ridge. Even from far away, he recognizes the shape. Low. Sloped. Unforgiving. He tightens his grip on the turret rim. This is no longer a campaign of easy victories. This is a war of machines, and Germany has just discovered it is not the only nation that knows how to build them. September 18, 1941. Southwest of Vyazma, in a shallow ravine soaked with autumn rain. The rain has not stopped for 3 days. It clings to uniforms, turns roads into glue, and fills every depression with brown water that smells of rot and fuel. Unteroffizier Karl Weiss, commander of a German 37 mm anti-tank gun crew, wipes mud from his eyes and squints downrange. They can hear the tanks before they see them. A low, grinding thunder, deeper than the Panzer engines Weiss knows. The sound vibrates through the ground, through your boots, through your bones. Weiss's loader mutters, "They're coming again!" The gun crew braces. Their weapon, once nicknamed the Hirschenklopfgerät, the Army's door knocker, feels suddenly absurd. The 37 mm had worked in Poland. It had worked in France. Against Soviet light tanks, it still works. But against these, out of the rain, the silhouettes appear. T-34s. 4 of them. Their hulls cut through the mud effortlessly, wide tracks biting where German half-tracks bogged down. Water sheets off their sloped armor. Their turrets turn slowly, deliberately, as if already confident in the outcome. "Range?" Weiss snaps. 600 meters. Weiss hesitates, just a fraction of a second, then nods. "Fire!" The gun bucks. The shell hits the lead T-34 square on the glassy plate and skips away, vanishing into the rain. The Soviet tank does not even slow. A second round. Another spark. Another failure. The T-34's gun flashes. The German anti-tank gun disappears in a cloud of dirt and metal. Weiss is thrown backward, ears ringing, mouth full of mud. When he forces himself upright, the gun is gone, smashed flat beneath advancing tracks. This is how fear enters an army. Not all at once. Not dramatically. But quietly, professionally, spreading from unit to unit as men begin to realize their weapons no longer guarantee survival. Reports from the front grow sharper, more desperate. Engagement only possible from flanks. Close assault required, high casualties. Enemy armor advances without regard for losses. German infantry adapt brutally. They stalk T-34s through villages, creeping close with bundled grenades and magnetic mines. They aim for engine decks. They sacrifice men to stop machines. Sometimes it works. Often it doesn't. At Smolensk, near Orel, the shock reaches its peak. There, General Guderian's Panzer units run headlong into a Soviet armored force under Colonel Mikhail Katakov, a commander who understands exactly what the T-34 can do. Katakov does not charge blindly. He uses forests, ambushes, short engagements. T-34s strike German columns from concealed positions, then withdraw before artillery can respond. German tanks burn in narrow roads where maneuver is impossible. For the first time, German armor doctrine is outplayed. Guderian later writes bitterly of the encounter. His words are measured, but the message is clear. The enemy has learned. And their machines give them the confidence to learn faster. Behind the lines, German engineers scramble. At Daimler-Benz, designers sketch sloped armor plates late into the night. At MAN, turret rings are widened to accommodate longer guns. Steel allocations are increased. Compromises are made, then abandoned. The war is forcing innovation at gunpoint. But innovation cannot reach the front quickly enough. By October, winter announces itself early. Frost hardens the ground. Engines struggle to start. German tanks, designed for short campaigns and good roads, suffer mechanical failures at alarming rates. The T-34 thrives. Its diesel engine coughs, then roars. Its wide tracks glide over snow where narrow German tracks dig in helplessly. Crews wrap themselves in felt boots and keep moving. One German mechanic watches a T-34 recover another Soviet tank from a frozen ditch. "They pull each other out," he says quietly. "Ours cannot." The psychological shift is unmistakable now. Panzer crews no longer assume superiority. They scan terrain anxiously. They listen for unfamiliar engines. They wait for the first shell, because whoever fires first now has the advantage. In letters home, soldiers begin to mention the Soviet tanks by name. "These T-34s are not like the others. We need new machines, or this will end badly." Berlin listens. But Berlin is far away. Production orders for the Panther accelerate. The Tiger, once considered excessive, is pushed forward as a breakthrough weapon. Thick armor, an 88mm gun, overwhelming power. But it is heavy, complex, and slow to build. Meanwhile, Soviet factories produce T-34s in numbers Germany cannot match. Quantity becomes a weapon. By the time the first snow falls in earnest, German commanders know the truth they will not say aloud. They are no longer fighting an inferior enemy with inferior machines. They are fighting a rival who has built a tank perfectly suited to this land, this climate, and this kind of war. And the T-34 is no longer a surprise. It is a constant presence. A steel reminder that the assumptions of June 1941 died somewhere in the mud near Smolensk. November 6, 1941. Kummersdorf Proving Ground, south of Berlin. Cold air cuts across the test field as engineers pull their coats tighter. Frost rims the edges of steel plates stacked like tombstones beside the firing line. A prototype turret sits mounted on a test rig, its long gun barrel stretching forward like a challenge. This is Germany's answer. Not yet named. Not yet trusted. An 88mm shell is chambered. The firing officer raises his arm. Fewer. The blast rolls across the range. The shell slams into a captured T-34 hull positioned 1,500 meters away. This time, the armor does not deflect. It ruptures. Steel tears open. The Soviet tank dies violently, as German tanks once did. A few engineers nod. Others remain silent. Because power alone is not enough. The question is whether Germany can build enough of it. By winter, two competing philosophies emerge inside the German design bureaus. One favors a medium tank inspired directly by the T-34, sloped armor, diesel engine, mobility first. Daimler-Benz champions this approach, openly acknowledging Soviet influence. The other faction, led by Mann, insists on a more traditionally German solution: gasoline engine, refined optics, complex suspension, and heavy firepower. Hitler intervenes personally. He rejects the diesel concept, orders the Mann design forward. German engineering pride wins over practicality. The tank will be called Panther. On paper, it is magnificent. Sloped armor rivaling the T-34. A high-velocity 75mm gun capable of killing Soviet tanks at long range. Speed to match any battlefield opponent. In reality, it is rushed. Factories are bombed. Steel is scarce. Skilled labor is being drafted into the army. Designs are finalized even as production begins. Components arrive incomplete. Crews are trained on vehicles still breaking down during trials. Meanwhile, the Tiger enters service, a monster of armor and firepower. Its 88mm gun can kill a T-34 at over 2 kilometers. Its frontal armor is nearly immune to Soviet guns. But it weighs over 50 tons. Bridges collapse under it. Fuel consumption is staggering. Mechanical failures are frequent. Every Tiger requires immense logistical support, something Germany increasingly lacks. On the Eastern Front, soldiers experience the consequences firsthand. January 1942. Near Rzew. A lone Tiger advances through snow-covered forest, its engine growling. Soviet T-34s open fire from multiple directions. Their shells bounce harmlessly off the Tiger's frontal armor. One by one, the German gun destroys them. For a moment, the old confidence returns. Then the Tiger's transmission fails. The tank halts. Snow drifts around it. Soviet infantry close in cautiously, like hunters circling a wounded animal. The Tiger fights until ammunition runs low, then its crew abandons it under covering fire. Victory, undone by mechanics. By contrast, the T-34 keeps coming. Soviet industry has found its rhythm. Factories beyond the Urals work day and night. Quality varies. Welds are rough, optics inconsistent, but none of that matters when numbers overwhelm precision. A German intelligence estimate in early 1942 concludes bluntly: "The enemy can replace losses faster than we can destroy them." Panzer crews feel it most acutely. Encounters no longer involve a handful of Soviet tanks. They involve dozens, then hundreds. Waves of green steel advancing through smoke and snow, supported by artillery and infantry willing to accept losses that would paralyze German units. The T-34 becomes the backbone of Soviet doctrine. It is no longer just a tank. It is a system. At Kharkov, German armor still achieves local victories, skill, coordination, and superior command making the difference. But even these victories are costly. Every destroyed T-34 is replaced. Every destroyed Panzer is not. Hans Keller, now a veteran platoon leader, receives his first briefing on the Panther in late 1942. The instructors speak reverently of its gun, its armor, its promise. Keller listens, then asks the question no one wants to answer. When do we get them in numbers? The instructor does not reply immediately. Soon, he says finally. But soon is a word the Eastern Front has already devoured. By the end of 1942, Germany has accepted a reality it once dismissed with laughter. The Soviets did not accidentally build the T-34. They built it for this war. And now, Germany is racing, not to regain superiority, but simply to keep up. July 5, 1943. South of Kursk, in the pre-dawn darkness. The night is unnaturally still. No birds. No wind. Just the quiet hum of engines idling beneath camouflage nets, and the soft clink of tools as crews make final adjustments. Lieutenant Hans Keller stands beside his tank, helmet tucked under one arm, staring east. He commands a Panther now. The machine looks fearsome even at rest, sloped armor plates meeting at sharp angles, long 75mm gun aimed slightly downward, tracks wide enough to leave deep, confident impressions in the earth. It is everything German engineers promised. And it terrifies him. Not because of the enemy, but because the tank has already broken down twice during the approach march. Inside the turret, his gunner checks the optics again. The image is crystal clear, better than anything Keller has ever seen. If they see a T-34 first, they will kill it. If, at exactly 4:30, the world detonates. German artillery opens fire in a rolling thunder that seems to lift the ground itself. Searchlights slice through dust and smoke. Engines roar as Panzer divisions surge forward into the largest armored battle in history. This is Operation Citadel, Germany's attempt to crush the Red Army's Kursk salient in one decisive blow. And waiting for them are thousands of T-34s. As Keller's Panther advances, the terrain immediately betrays them. Minefields explode beneath tracks. Anti-tank guns fire from hidden positions. Soviet artillery pounds approach routes with pre-registered precision. Then the T-34s appear. They do not charge blindly. They emerge in coordinated groups, halt down behind ridges, firing on the move. Their silhouettes are instantly recognizable now. No confusion, no disbelief. Just calculation. Keller spots one at 1,800 meters. Target, T-34, left of the burning tree. The Panther's gun fires. The Soviet tank erupts in flame, turret hatch blowing open. A clean kill. Another T-34. Another kill. For a moment, it seems the tide has turned. Then Keller's Panther shudders violently. Transmission failure. The tank lurches, grinds, and stops dead in the middle of a mine-scarred field. Out of gear! The driver shouts. She's dead. Around them, Panthers burn, not always from enemy fire, but from engine fires, fuel leaks, mechanical breakdowns. Some crews abandon intact tanks under artillery pressure, unable to tow them away. The T-34s keep moving. They swarm disabled Panthers, firing at close range, circling, striking flanks and rears. Soviet infantry follow close behind, finishing immobilized German tanks with grenades and flamethrowers. The battlefield becomes a scrapyard of burning steel. By the end of the first day, German losses are catastrophic. Nearly half of the Panthers committed are out of action, many without ever engaging the enemy. The Tiger units perform better. Their armor holds. Their guns dominate open ground. But they are too few to change the outcome alone. Across the front, the same pattern repeats. German tanks win individual duels. The Soviets win the battle. By mid-July, it is clear to everyone who matters that Citadel has failed. The Red Army launches massive counteroffensives. German units fall back under relentless pressure. In Soviet reports, the T-34 is praised not for elegance or innovation, but for reliability. It starts. It moves. It fights. And when destroyed, another replaces it. German officers write bitterly in their diaries. We kill them in tens. They return in hundreds. For Keller, Kursk is the end of illusions. As his crew retreats westward on foot, their Panther abandoned, later destroyed by artillery, he watches columns of Soviet armor advancing through smoke and dust. The T-34s roll forward like an iron tide, engines growling, tracks chewing through wreckage. This is no longer a war of maneuver. It is a war of production. And Germany is losing it. The machine that once shocked Panzer crews at Smolensk has now become the instrument of Germany's strategic defeat. The laughter of 1941 feels like it belongs to another lifetime. January 16, 1944. Near Kirovograd, southern Ukraine. Snow drifts across a battlefield littered with frozen hulks. Burnout German Panthers. Twisted Panzer IVs. Scattered among them, dozens of Soviet tanks, many destroyed, many more still advancing beyond the horizon. Lieutenant Hans Keller watches from a shallow trench as another Soviet armored column passes, their silhouettes dark against the pale winter sky. He no longer tries to count them. The war has simplified itself. If you have tanks, you attack. If you do not, you retreat. German armored units are shadows of what they once were. Fuel is rationed. Spare parts are cannibalized from wrecks. Crews fight with whatever machines still move. The Red Army does not slow down. Their offensives roll westward in relentless phases. Artillery, infantry, armor, again and again. The T-34 leads them all, upgraded now with improved turrets, better radios, and increasingly experienced crews. It is not perfect. It never was. But perfection is no longer required. In Germany, factories strain under Allied bombing. Production figures are impressive on paper. Panthers, Tigers, assault guns, but they arrive too late, too few, too fragile. Each new model is more complex than the last, demanding skilled labor and pristine supply chains that no longer exist. The T-34, by contrast, grows simpler. Welds are rougher. Finishes cruder. Some crews joke that you can see daylight through the seams. But it does not matter. The tank runs. The gun fires. The armor holds, long enough. A Soviet tanker later explains it plainly. We did not need the best tank. We needed enough tanks. By 1944, German engineers fully understand what happened. They did not lose because they failed to innovate. The Panther and Tiger are technological marvels. On paper, and often in combat, they outperform the T-34. They lost because the T-34 forced a war Germany was not prepared to fight. A war of mass production. A war of attrition. A war where the battlefield stretches from factories to rail yards to frozen fields thousands of kilometers apart. The first encounter at Smolensk had been a warning. The sloped armor was not just a clever trick. It was a philosophy. Built for reality, not for ideal conditions. Designed for mud, cold, inexperience, and loss. Accept imperfection in exchange for survival. Germany learned that lesson and applied it too late. In April 1945, as the Red Army closes on Berlin, Keller stands among the ruins of a shattered city. He has survived longer than most. Luck. Skill. Nothing more. A burned-out T-34 rests at a street corner, its turret blown off, hull cracked open. Keller studies it for a long moment. Once, he remembers, men like him laughed at tanks like this. Crude. Ugly. Inferior. Now, one stands in the heart of Germany. Not as a marvel of engineering, but as proof. Proof that wars are not won by brilliance alone, but by machines that match the world they are sent into. The T-34 did not defeat Germany by being flawless. It defeated Germany by being right.